nightmare. Have you ever wondered why CBD oil is a billion-dollar industry? It's because it works better than opioids and is actually healthy for you. However, CBD oil is stripped of all other helpful compounds found in the hemp plant. According to neuroscientists, the whole hemp plant, otherwise known as hemp paste, is even more effective than the chemically processed CBD oil. Are you ready to take back your health? You can try hemp paste for the price of a cup of coffee.
Hemppaste.com/RBN. Free shipping on orders over $50. See the banners for hemp paste at republicbroadcasting.org and visit hemppaste.com/RBN.
You're listening to Real Talk Radio, only on the Republic Broadcasting Network.
The American dream has become a nightmare. Signs of the time are on cardboard on corners in town. Like a cancer that's silently spreading, there's an unspoken fear. We're on our way down. We must take America back.
Right, America. We must take America back. I'm Peter Serafine, broadcasting from my home studio in downtown Belfont, Pennsylvania. Worldwide as National Intel Report live on Republic Broadcasting Network, Liberty Lighthouse on Mojo 50 Radio, Patriot Nation Radio Network, and any place else you might happen to hear or see the show. Welcome to 2 hours of common sense and constitutional discussion. Tonight, I've got Brenthamachek, Common Ground Campus, and Brenthamachek.com and humanevents.com. Entrepreneur extraordinaire Brenthamachek going to join us at the bottom of this first hour, so roughly the 6:30 Eastern time frame, if you're watching or listening live. And then at the top of the second hour, supposed to be Dave Sumrall, but Dave Sumrall's traveled, and he's going to be in the deserts of Colorado about showtime. So he set me up with one of his colleagues over at StopHate.com, and that's Tamara Lee, and she's going to be joining us at the top of the second hour. So roughly 7 o'clock, Brenthamachek and Tamara Lee. It should be a good and fun, exciting show. I got some other exciting news to share. And, well, it's a little on the personal side. My newest book, A More Tyrannical King, that just came out like a little less 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, something like that, on Amazon right now. As I'm broadcasting here Thursday night, it is the number 17 bestseller book under comparative politics. That's exciting to me. I'm hoping that maybe just for a minute we can hit number one. Help me out with that. Will you go to Amazon and buy a copy of A More Tyrannical King? And if you can't buy a copy, which by the way, it's available in a hardcover, it's available in a paperback, it's available in an ebook, blah, 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 blah. But if you don't want to buy one and you want to take your chances that maybe luck might be on your side, you can go to liberty-lighthouse.com and click the win a book button right at the top of the page. And we're going to be giving out some books tonight on the show. So I give them out live on air. I think I've given out like 20 so far, 25. I don't know. If I did my math right, by the end of show tonight, I should have given away 30 free books. So go to liberty-lighthouse.com, click the win a book link, and might win one of the 3 books tonight on air. Over in the YouTube chat room, someone has just asked when we're going to have Loy Brunson back on. Is there any update? I don't know. I haven't reached out to Loy in a while. I'll have to do that. Let me make a note because my memory sucks. So I'm just going to write down here, Loy Brunson, and we will see about getting him back on the show. All right, so that's enough. Yeah, my book's doing pretty good. And you might want to try to win a chance at a book. I think the thing in the news right now that is hilarious to me, not surprising, but hilarious, is the Biden administration announcing that they're going to start building some of the border wall down in Texas. That to me is funny. It's not surprising to me because, as I've said since Joe Biden said he was going to run for office, Joe Biden, Joe Biden, he's a puppet of his party. He has always gone with the political winds of the time. He has no stance of his own. So when he was inaugurated, he said not one more foot of border wall would be built. And now he's building border wall. Now, why do you think that is? Well, that's because the perspective of his party is changing and he has to change with it because he has no backbone. It's the only thing he knows how to do. Now, if you have a better explanation as to why he might be doing this, feel free to call. This is a live call-in show, 512-248-8252. And if you prefer not to actually be on air, but you want to make a comment, you can do that by texting 646-974-4487. That's 64 my rights. Text 646-974-4487 or call 512-248-8252. Okay, so if you remember during the 2015 campaign season up to the 2016 election, and then from 2016 to 2020. So for a good 5 years, walls were ineffective and racist. And then Biden gets elected and opens everything up, and now we're building walls again. And if you just a reminder here, let's listen to what some of our political people had to say about walls over the last few years.
Build a wall.
We do not agree with the building of the wall.
A racist and xenophobic wall.
Walls don't work in this 21st century.
We know that walls don't work, that they don't stop drugs, that they don't stop migration.
We spent years investing in a faulty border wall that was never going to be an effective mechanism.
Waste taxpayer dollars on an ineffective wall. Again, an ineffective wall that can't even withstand heavy winds.
The wall is, in my view, immoral, expensive, unwise.
We know that walls do not save lives. Walls end lives.
There will not be another foot of wall constructed on my administration.
I think my favorite one in there was the walls end lives. That's funny. So why the flip-flop, right? And not to mention, so it's racist and ineffective, but we're going to do it anyway. That's basically what Biden said just, I don't know, yesterday, a day or two ago, whatever. When he was asked about it, why his administration was building the wall, he was asked if he thought it would work, and he said no. He still thinks walls are ineffective, but he's going to do it anyway. And he's blaming Congress because, Congress already appropriated this money. Yeah, well, Congress had already appropriated that money, before you were elected. You wanted to take the already paid for materials for the wall, sitting there in Texas, just waiting to go up, be assembled. You wanted to auction it off for pennies on the dollar. I'm hoping that didn't happen. Because now, we got to go buy more? So let's just take the ineffective part. So, Mr. Biden, you think walls are ineffective? Then why are you doing it? Why are you wasting the taxpayers' money if they're ineffective? Or maybe all of human history finally hit you in the face and you realize that walls are effective. The Great Wall of China, kept the Mongols out of China for centuries. Every medieval town, every medieval castle had a wall because walls work. Many of our lovely rich politician types live in gated communities, walled off or fenced off from the rest of the world. Pretty sure at least one of Joe Biden's houses has a wall around it. So, which is it, Mr. Biden? Are they ineffective and you're wasting our money? Or are they effective and you're just a political liar? I'm leaning toward the latter. I don't know about you. It's just my thoughts on the matter. Anyway, next part of that. So now he's doing it. But in order to do it, in order to finish the wall or do whatever he's doing with the wall, erect a foot, I don't know. He's got to suspend or waive 26 federal laws or regulations in order to do it. So the rule of law, well, that doesn't matter when political expedience becomes necessary. It's kind of where we are in the world. That's wrong. There's all kinds of things wrong with this entire situation. We've just touched the surface. But every time I look at the news, every time I look outside my house, I think, you need right to bear insurance. If you own a firearm, if you carry a firearm especially, you need carry insurance. And right to bear is the best carry insurance on the market. It is the most affordable carry insurance on the market, according to Pew Pew Tactical. Go to protectwithbear.com and use code Lighthouse while you're there. Save 10% off the already most affordable insurance on the market. That's protectwithbear.com, code Lighthouse. You're listening to Liberty Lighthouse because America is worth saving. So where do we want to go with the conversation? What are your thoughts on this whole not going to build a wall, now I'm going to build a wall thing? Or something else. If you've got something else you'd rather talk about, give me a call. 512-248-8252 or text 64 my rights 646-974-4487. My head kind of exploded in laughter when I saw that Biden was building the wall. And he's trying to say that he has to do it because Congress appropriated them money. Well, Congress also passed the laws that says it's illegal to cross our border without going through a port of entry. And you haven't been enforcing that law. You chose not to. So why are you choosing to go with this one? It's politics. It's all it is. It's because his party is shifting. You've got the Democrat mayors like Mayor Adams of New York that are going to Mexico and going south of Mexico and saying, don't come. You got these same mayors saying that the Biden administration has to enforce the border, calling Biden and his team out, calling them out for not doing their job. So his party has left him on this cliff. And it's election season. We're starting to work toward elections. So I think that immigration is going to be a pretty big issue in the next presidential election. But what's going on? The guy who caused the problem is going to at least pretend to care about it for a little while during campaign season. He's going to try to make it look like he's doing something. And even let's say that he can reduce immigration by, heck, let's say he can reduce it by 90%. Immigration, I shouldn't even say that. Reduce the invasion by 90%. Immigration, that is not immigration. Anyway, Let's say he can reduce it by 90%. He's going to claim that as a win. He's going to say, look, I've got illegal immigration down by 90% from its high. It's the same argument they use with inflation. Oh, inflation is down by half from its high. Yeah, but we don't get that back. We paid the 8% inflation on everything, and then now you've cut it down to 4. Well, it's 4% this month. It was still 8% last month. It didn't go backwards. You just slowed the growth. They did it with the gas prices. Like, whoa, the gas prices are down by 75% over their high of nearly $5. Yeah, but they're still up over $1 from when you took office. The messaging of this Biden administration, the messaging that comes out of this White House, it's so dishonest. And I realize the messaging that comes out of almost all politicians is dishonest, but with this guy, it's nobody calls him on it. The mainstream media just lets him go. I don't understand why. Is it just because he's been there for 50 years? Yeah, 50 years. 50 years this year. Joe Biden was elected to the Senate in 1972, swore in 1973. He has been elected to the office of to a federal office for about a month longer than I've been alive. And I feel old. It's funny. We've gotten so partisan that we will put, John Fetterman here in my home state of Pennsylvania. We put this guy in office and he couldn't string 3 words together to make a sentence. He went to a debate where he needed a screen to be able to read the words because he couldn't speak them or he couldn't understand them spoken. But he's supposed to be able to go to Senate and do his job of listening to the arguments of other senators. People have become so ardently a D or an R, an elephant or a donkey, that they would rather put somebody with clear brain damage in office than somebody with the wrong letter behind their name. That is factions. That is parties. That's exactly one of the very prophetic warnings that we received from our very first president. George Washington's farewell address gave some pretty big warnings in there, and factions was among them, and was, some might argue, chief among them. But that's what we've done. How do we get past that? I'm not a D or an R. I'm a constitutionalist. I want a government at the federal level who follows the federal constitution. And I want a government at the state level that follows their state constitutions. Is it too late for that? Is that change too radical? Would that collapse society if that happened? Next year, if we elect, let's say, a third of the Senate will be up for vote. So let's say we elect 20 hard, conservative constitutionalists to the Senate. And we get 300 really firm constitutionalists in the House. And they just start tearing everything down. They get rid of the Department of Education and the Department of Transportation and the Department of this and, the EPA and FDA, all the three-letter agencies that aren't clearly authorized in the Constitution, just start eliminating them. Would that crash our society? I don't know if it would or not. I think the end result, long term would be good. But would that drastic of a change crash the United States economy, crumble our society? I know on outside of our country, the rest of the world would probably see that as weakness. The rest of the world would probably see that as the United States, tightening the belt because we see something bad coming or we're going broke or whatever. But what would it do to us? Like I said, I think long term it would be great. That's what I want. Just last night, my friend, little liberal to me, becoming more conservative as he ages, like many of us do, but still more progressive than I am. He asked me what's the perfect government look like to me? And I said, a government that actually follows the Constitution and only does the 17 things in Article 1, Section 8. Where Congress doesn't do these things. Like, I don't know, all of those federal department agencies. And he said, what about treaties? What about the, the trade agreements and the climate change agreements? I'm like, why are we doing climate change agreements? The United States is already cleaner than most other countries. Why are we joining agreements, making it harder for us than it is for them when they're already behind us in the process? He didn't seem to get what I was saying. He said, well, because it's the role of government. I'm like, no, it's not. It's the role of the free markets. Almost every light bulb in my house is an LED bulb. I didn't do that when LED bulbs were expensive. I did that after LED bulbs became affordable. And they became affordable when people started wanting them and more companies started to make them. Same thing goes with your television. You used to have to save for months to scrape together the money to buy a television, and now you can pick one up at Walmart for a little bit of nothing. That's how the free market works. Things get cheaper when people want them. Same thing would happen with electric cars without government intervention. As electric cars got better, people would want them. The cars would get better. People would want them more. Then the cars would get cheaper and people would want them more. But instead, we have a government who wants to take your tax money. They want to take money from all of us and build the infrastructure for the electric vehicle fleet that they demand we start driving. Did they do that when the gasoline engine came around? When the internal combustion engine and, Henry Ford started making cars affordable and there were cars everywhere, was it the federal government that went out and put gas pumps at drugstores? No. It was entrepreneurs. It was people that thought, hey, there's a couple of cars in town now. I bet I could start selling that gasoline stuff and make a buck. So why can't we let the free markets get the electric cars here? It's because our government has decided that they want to be involved in every decision that you make. they've expanded into things that they have no business doing. At the same time that they're trying to prop up the electric vehicle industry, they're trying to crush the internal combustion engine industry by over-regulating it, constantly raising standards that just can't be met while keeping a vehicle affordable. Government's in everything. They need to get out. That music that I hear coming means it's just about break time. We come back on the other side of this break. We got Brenthamachek, entrepreneur extraordinaire, going to be joining the show. We'll be back in 3 minutes.
What would you say if I told you we have a new tool that will increase production and lower maintenance costs for your meat processing company? And it would pay for itself in just 6 weeks.
When pigs fly!
The new Ease Off Model Easy 4 replaces old spring-style carcass droppers and is faster, safer, and more reliable. The Ease Off lowers or lifts 1,000 pounds to or from your rail automatically using our remote control.
Sounds expensive. Can I afford it?
Can you afford not to try the Ease Off? It installs fast.
Oh. Sorry about that. Yeah, y'all are good.
All right, thanks. I didn't want to start talking all over the radio commercials without knowing that we were clear. Mr. Hamachek, how are you this evening?
Never better. How are you?
Super fantabulous.
I'm glad to hear that.
I've been giving away books lately. So at some point, I'm going to announce how to get it in the drawing here in a minute. And at some point, I'm going to ask you to pick a number. And then I'll look on my list and you'll be picking a winner.
If it's between 1 and 10, I'll guess 11. It's the luck I have, right?
Well, I hope it's higher than 1 and 10.
There we go.
Well, this one, my newest one, the one that came out on Constitution Day, right before we started the show, was number 17 in comparative politics on Amazon.
That's terrific.
That's pretty awesome for me, but it's still it's moved up to number 19 now. Dang it. But
well, I like it that you said it moved up to a number dropping. That's good. That shows the ultimate positive attitude. So that's good. Well done. It's called reframing.
Reframing. Yeah, politicians.
Sounds better than cognitive dissonance. So we'll
we might have a friend of yours joining toward the end of your interview.
I heard that Tamara's filling in. Yeah.
That was supposed to be a surprise. Dang it.
She is my dearest friend. So no question about it. We do what you do. We have our own show on Your News. So we're on a couple weeks hiatus because she's out for a family wedding and a little vacation. But yeah, we do what you do. We should have you on to talk about your book.
Sure.
Talk to the boss lady about that when she comes on. She runs the place. I just work here. I work for Tamara. I work for Mel K. I work for Felissa. I work for all these really smart, wonderful women. I just do whatever I'm told.
Here we go, guys. We're coming back.
Thank you much, Mike.
They railed against the crown. Another ragtag band declaring independence.
Whose crown did they rail against? Oh yeah, King George. So welcome back. It's the bottom of this first hour. I'm Peter Serafine. Do me a favor, everybody, go out, share a link to this show wherever you're watching or listening from. Share it out. Tell everybody where you are. We on the right side of the political aisle, the conservative bent, we need your help. We can't do this on our own. The algorithms don't help us. We can only do it when you help us. And you can do that by, buying the merchandise and using our promo codes and sharing content. Doesn't cost you a thing to share content. We're going to wait just a couple of minutes And then we're going to draw the first winner of the book drawing tonight. So if you want a chance to win one of my 3 books, go to liberty-lighthouse.com and click the win a book link right on the top of the front page. And in just a couple of minutes, Mr. Brenthamachek is going to pick a number. And it's going to be one of you lucky winners out there. Oh, speaking of which, Brenthamachek is here.
Where do you go when you want the truth about current human events? You go to Brenthamachek over at humanevents.com, BrentHamachek.com, and over on Common Ground Campus. And now, welcome into studio, Brenthamachek.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. That's always such an enthusiastic introduction. It makes me want to run out and take the field. I don't even know what game I'm playing. I just want to take the field.
Yeah, he's an enthusiastic fella, and it's really the guy who voiced that for me. It's very athletic, and went out and decided that he wanted to become a professional wrestler in his spare time, and he took classes and stuff, and he went out and he, in his first real match, I think it was, he broke his arm.
Sounds a little bit like what happened to Aaron Rodgers at the beginning of this NFL season.
Bit,
yeah. Talk about a bad firework.
So, Mr. Hamachek, how are things at Common Ground Campus and everywhere else in your world?
Well, they're terrific. We've got an event coming up on November 14th at Hope College in Michigan. We're really excited. We've got a lot of community support for the event, a lot of campus support. It looks like we're going to be taking on student concerns under the heading of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we ought to be able to find lots of things that students involved are concerned about. And of course, as your audience knows, from months of me beating them over the head with the concept, we're not going to debate anything related to DEI. We're going to listen to different students' particular concerns, and then we're going to see if we can find a way between differing views to come to a way to address the problem. So we're about problem solving, not arguing. Seems like most people these days already have a doctorate in arguing, and most of them haven't studied just simply problem solving at even the kindergarten level. So we're going to do remedial education and problem solving, and we'll leave arguing to the rest of the universe.
Right. I was just going to say, look at the so-called debates that have been going on lately, the Republican Party debates, presidential debates.
Right.
Those aren't debates.
Well, no, they never have been, right? I mean, they've never really been debates from the day they started. I think, well, I shouldn't say that. Lincoln Douglas was, but in modern times, these aren't debates that we're seeing. They're just people standing up and saying the things they want to say, regardless even what the question is. You know, it's like, thank you for asking that question. I'm going to answer a different one, right? And say the things that I want to say in relation to it. So this is tragic. And to the extent that they are debates, I mean, I've long made the argument, and this will sound harsh, but that's my nature, that anybody who makes up their mind who to vote for by watching one of these debates shouldn't vote. Don't vote. You're not qualified to vote. And I say it with a smile on my face, but I'm really serious. I'll tell you why. The reason is that once they finish debating and once a person is elected to office, the next time they will debate is when they run again.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something that takes place, a spectacle on stage that has nothing, less than nothing to do with governing. So the idea that we would watch people in a televised spectacle and then make a decision about who we'd like to have lead the country or be our senator or whatever it might be is preposterous. So if you find yourself watching these things and then making a decision about who you like, please don't vote. Go ahead and like them, share, recommend on social media. Please don't vote because you shouldn't, because it should have nothing to do with your decision.
Yeah, I can't watch them because of the fact that they act like children. They're all just screaming over each other just to get their 2 cents in, and it's never 2 cents I really want to hear.
Right, it's bad. So, by the way, and it's not off topic, but I would love to bring up my own topic if I could, but it's related. So I promise it doesn't, it's not about what is the best pesticide to use to keep bees away.
Tamara has jumped in early. Should we let her into the conversation?
Oh, you can always let Tamara in.
All right.
As long as she still lets me make my point, because on our show, I never get to talk. Hi, Tamara.
Contraire.
Welcome to the show, Tamara.
Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here.
Be still my beating heart. So you look lovely.
Thank you.
So and I'm sure Tamara will have a thought on this. Here's the point I want to make, and it relates to the Republican presidential field, and it relates to all the buzz that's been going on this past week about the attempt to get Governor Youngkin to jump into the race. So I would like to give a piece of unsolicited advice to the governor that he is free to completely ignore, and I'm certain that he will. If you want to be president, the best thing you can possibly do is not run, not yet. And I will point to your brethren from the South, Governor DeSantis, who, had it not been for the fact that Donald Trump did declare and decide to run, Ron DeSantis would have been, without a close second, he would have been the Republican nominee for president if he had run against a field. Instead, Governor DeSantis's political career at a national level is over. It's finished. He can never be president now. And he can't be because people who are Trump supporters don't see him as a cute little fellow running for president like they do the other candidates in the field. All the other candidates, we all knew they couldn't win. And, they're running for a little attention. Maybe they're running for 2028 to get recognized. But DeSantis was the real deal. And for him to step in and run when Trump was already running was seen as treason.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Trump supporters will never forgive him. He's finished. Now, what could he have done? First of all, DeSantis would have had a great chance to be president in 2028. Secondly, we also know this, as popular as DeSantis was, if he had sat on the sidelines and said, I'm going to wait and see if with all of these forces of nature working against Trump legally, if something happens to force him out of the campaign, if he decides to leave, DeSantis could have stepped in November, in February, in August, and been the Republican nominee. He would have been by acclamation.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, he's finished. So here's my advice to the Youngkin folks. Stand down, stand back, and wait. Because now that DeSantis is finished, and now that nobody else in the Republican field is taken seriously, just watch what happens. Because if Trump stays in the race, Governor, you can't win. You can't win. You have no chance. Zero chance. But if he steps out, you could be the new Ron DeSantis. And you could step up and say, I'm entering the race. And you are loved by the people in this country for what you've been doing in Virginia. You are aligned with the kinds of things that Trump stands for in general in terms of policy. You could be the savior. So if you're listening, and I'm sure you're not, please don't run, but stand by. He might be.
I would be flattered and surprised if he was listening. Tamara, what are your thoughts on Brent's thoughts?
I feel like I'm on one of our Trend on Politics show because we discussed these very issues, and I maybe have heard this thought from Brent before. So,
well, we haven't talked much this week, so you haven't heard me on Youngkin, but you know the general theory.
I do, yeah, for sure on the DeSantis. I've heard that summary of his demise. So my advice to your audience is to take very seriously whatever Brent is saying here, because he is rarely wrong, and much times I wish he were. Many times
I wish it was.
Many times I wish he was, because it's like, darn it, you're right again. So yeah, he's a little bit Nostradamus when it comes to making some predictions in the political world, only because he approaches it from a very rational standpoint, looks at kind of the lay of the land and understanding human nature, both good and bad. So, which I was going to, so David, before the show had sent me the Amazon link for your book, and I had my two little grandboys, 1 and 3, all day. And so I wasn't able to dive deeper into what it is. So we'll have to have you on our show. And you can
I said that to him. Yes, we're going to have you on our show. Turnabout's fair play, as Sheila Marshall used to say.
What you said about predictions. When I wrote my first book, it was called Progress. Really, it's super short. This is the first thing I ever wrote with the intent of publishing. It was the first time I ever really started thinking about politics. There's a couple of predictions in here that have come true, and that's sad. I wrote this right before the COVID stuff happened, but I predicted in here that there would come a time that a doctor would get sued because he refused to give a prostate exam to a woman or a pelvic exam to a man because of the transgendered nonsense that was just starting to rear its head back then. So I get a prediction right every now and then.
You could hold your book up to your head and predict it, right? Like the old Johnny Carson.
Speaking of my books, the last few weeks I've been trying to give them away. So let's see here. Let's pick a number. Brent, start with you. Pick a number between 1 and 41.
Between 1 and 41. Well, I don't know why I'm going to do this, but I'm going to pick 41 as a hat tip to Brian Piccolo. How's that?
Yeah, let's see here. That is somebody I think already won. Let me check. I'm going to do some sorting here.
Otherwise, I pick another number, huh?
Yeah. All right. So here's the deal. I tell people that you're drawing for one book, but I send them all 3. So.
Shall I pick another number? Do we have a duplicate winner?
I don't. Well, I can't give it to that person anyway because they put their email address in their physical address spot. So yeah, pick another number, please.
All right. I will pick the number of my all-time favorite steroid user, Mark McGuire, number 25.
Mr. Chris Plant from Wisconsin. Congratulations, Mr. Chris Plant.
Shout out to your home state, Tamara.
Yes, we do love cheese and football players on steroids.
Congratulations to Mr. Chris Plant.
Baseball, Tim.
I gave out the secret. I've been telling people for the last several weeks that we did these drawings, and I'm sending you one of the 3 books. But I've been sending everybody all 3 books with a little surprise note in there. So congratulations, Mr. Chris Plant. You just won yourself 3 books. And we'll do that again a little later. We'll have Tamara pick the number next time. So if you still want to jump in to that contest, go to liberty-lighthouse.com and click the Win a Book link right at the top of the page. And now's probably a good time to do a commercial break. So why don't we talk about the Wellness Company? We all need doctors. We all need healthcare at some point or another. If you need some healthcare that hasn't fallen for the woke nonsense, healthcare that stands up for your individual medical freedom, that's where the Wellness Company comes in. Born out of the wokeness of COVID-19, doctors that were canceled and censored, like Dr. Peter McCullough, they started the Wellness Company. They've got great American-made supplements and plans, monthly, like membership plans, where you can get unlimited visits with doctors and pharmacists. Go to twc.health and use code Lighthouse when you're there, and I'll save you a buck or two. That's twc.health. Use code Lighthouse. Okay. Now, when I thought it was Dave coming on here,
I know I don't look like him, but I know a lot of stuff like him.
No offense to Dave, but you look better than Dave.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to Dave about Congressman, is it Bowman, who pulled the fire alarm on Saturday, trying to supposedly, because he's stupid and thought somehow that pulling a fire alarm would open a door. But in all reality, I don't think anybody believes that. I think everybody thinks he did it in order to interrupt and delay the vote thereby disrupting an official proceeding. That charge sounds familiar to me.
Absolutely. And for your audience, the reason I'm here instead of David Sumrall of StopHate.com is I've worked very closely with David day one since January 6th, involved on the Writing History project that got the really David started the collection of video evidence of patriots who were there on January 6th to kind of build this library of citizen video footage to be able to put together. So we put together Writing History, the journalistic battle of January 6th. We put together the 5 deaths of January 6th article over at StopHate.com that outlines the death of Roseanne Boyland, Ashley Babbitt, Kevin Greason, and Benjamin Phillips, and Officer Brian Sicknick. And then the J6 part of innocence, which we can maybe touch on later. But I just have stayed very much in contact. I kind of work sometimes behind the scenes with David, but I am up to speed on things. And the reason that verbiage, and I'm glad you said it and read it exactly that way. If he had just pulled a fire alarm and, it was just political theater as usual, we might have just all shrugged, right? And said, oh, more do nothing theatrics in Congress. However, there are people sitting in jail today who have been there for a very long time. We're going on 1,000 Days, which is the trailer 1,000 Days of Terror that I'm sure David wanted to discuss with you as well. New trailer out for their upcoming J6 timeline documentary that'll be out in November. There are people who the weaponized DOJ has used that charge to give them the harshest of sentences, up to 22 years. Enrique Torres is the one, I think, so far who's gotten the highest jail sentence.
Who wasn't even there.
Correct. So it's, this whole fabricated, weaponized DOJ, fabricated story, which the timeline and the 1,000 Days of Terror trailer will help to show that there are a series of events, because the public was from day one misinformed about what was going on January 6th. But it's the who got to the story first, right? That's the one that stuck with the American public. And then it was repeated over and over and over by the mainstream media. And then the J6 Unselect Committee made it look official and gave more weight to their lie of the narrative of January 6th. David Sumrall and Gary McBride, Trennis Evans, those are some of the leaders who have put together the accurate timeline, gotten to the video footage of what actually happened, who instigated the violence on January 6th, why there's nothing. So the issue with this guy pulling the fire alarm is that he's not been charged, likely won't get charged, and the double standard of our two-tier justice system.
Right. Wow. And wow, we have hundreds of people sitting in American gulags. And if you want to hear their stories, buy the American Gulag Chronicles at StopHate.com. It is the story of many of these J6 prisoners in their own words, in their own handwritten letters, their artwork, all in one book. And all the money raised goes to their families and legal defense and all of those kinds of things. So it's the American Gulag Chronicles, letters from prison at StopHate.com. And American Gulag are two words that should never be spoken together. And that's exactly what we have now.
Yeah, it's, well, and Brent knows this because we've done shows on it too, of, he, I think, was the first one to flow it out shortly after that the term dissidents, that we're American dissidents.
Mm-hmm.
In our own country, political dissidents that are prosecuted and treated no better than any communist country that we would be advocating to get our prisoners released from.
But we have a constitution and the Bill of Rights that allows us to be political dissidents legally.
Right. Well, and so did the Soviet Union.
Exactly.
So interesting, by the way, I saw something not too long ago within the last couple of weeks that at some major university, a majority of the students couldn't recognize the difference between the U.S. Constitution and the Soviet Constitution, and which made me chuckle because it's something I've written about in the past kind of extensively. Look, the power of January 6th, the reason that I wrote the piece that we've talked about on your show prior and that Tamara mentioned, was pretty simple to me. And that was because immediately after January 6th, I knew what was going to happen. And I knew what was going to happen because of William Randolph Hearst. Because it was back in the early part of the last century that Hearst had a reporter down in Cuba covering a war that just wasn't taking place. Mm-hmm. And when he was contacted by his reporter saying, Mr. Hearst, there's no war starting here. Hearst famously said, his reply back was, you give me pictures and I'll give you a war. And that's what January 6th provided, because regardless of all the good efforts that are being made and should be made and need to be made, because as dissidents, we need to pile up losses, right? So that eventually the losses get piled up in such a large pile, it gets hard for people to ignore them. But the problem we have that we can't escape is that the imagery from January 6th to the regular person, and under the bell curve, most Americans are just regular folks, it looks frightening. And those pictures gave the folks that want to put a boot on our throat, it gave them the opportunity to show them those pictures and to say, take a look at this. These people are dangerous. Your liberty's at stake. Your democracy, the one you don't actually have, is being threatened. And we're going to have to do some very, very strong things in order to protect you. And to the typical average American, their response was, yes, you do.
Right.
And you don't see an outrage against what's going on the way that you should in America, in large part, because of the pictures from January 6th. We can't overcome those, at least not easily.
Just like the
Patriot
Act.
That was the basis of, I was going to say that was the basis of our writing history. Immediately after January 6th, David and I were having conversations about the language and the narrative and how we had to not let it stick. We didn't want their insurrection, their violent descriptors of J6 to stick. And so the way to do that was to get out the counter narrative. And that was the basis of writing history, was to show who instigated the violence, because it's taking that slice of a photograph and making it look like one thing, when if you had the whole picture, it's a very different scenario, right? And that was what 1,000 Days of Terror will show. The police fired first on the crowd. They drew first blood. There were BLM agitators in the crowd pushing patriots into the police. The police have since come out and said they were caught off guard as well. Whoops, we're living here.
I just turned my camera to show the First Blood poster on my wall.
Oh yeah.
Since you made the Stallone reference, I thought I'd jump in.
It's just subliminal. The First Blood.
Well, this isn't new in American history by any means. I was just last night, I was working on my next op-ed piece, and the Constitution written in 1787, ratified 1788, 1791, the Bill of Rights was ratified. 1798, 7 years after the Bill of Rights, the Alien and Sedition Act, which openly and clearly violated 3 of the 5 freedoms guaranteed by the First Amendment. Only 7 years after the First Amendment was ratified.
So, and of course, we have a host of those anomalies over 200 plus years. They started early, they continue. Quick point with regard to the video and the January 6th piece and the work that's done to try to get people to see it differently. For your audiences, they may know this, they may not, but it's fun at cocktail parties. Everybody knows the term cognitive dissonance. What they might not know is where it came from, and it came from a couple of sociologists, psychologists who studied a group of doomsday folks back in the 1950s, and they wrote a book called When Prophecy Fails. This was a group that thought aliens were coming to destroy the earth, and if you were prepared, they would lift you up a day ahead of time and off you go. Well, as the day got closer and the moment got closer, of course, the prophecy was wrong. And what happened with the people in that group? Did they get really angry that they'd sold and given away all their stuff? No, they doubled down on their prophecy, because once you get invested in something, it's hard to be able to walk away from it. As we like to say in recovery, you can't save your face and your ass at the same time. People are very concerned about saving face. So we've got a whole nation filled with people that believe in the scenario that's been painted of January 6th. And so to get them to see that the prophecy was false, if you will, that what they were told wasn't right, what they believed in wasn't the case, is extraordinarily difficult, because the human tendency is not to wake up and say, I was wrong. It's to say, let me figure out how I can still be right.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're fighting against.
Right. And then you have MSM and the pundits and all those who the average American turns on in the morning as they're getting ready for the day and just has it as background noise. But they have doubled and tripled down on the narrative. I mean, if you tune in and watch some of those, we tend to not do that. Those of us in the MAGA movement or on the right, we tend not to listen to mainstream media. And sometimes that's to our detriment, because we don't know what they're saying. So we don't know how to counter it when we're out talking amongst, the general public or our community and sphere of influence. And so to understand that they have really hammered down on that message as if to make sure all of the truth doesn't change people's minds. It's quite remarkable, or not remarkable, as Brent would say, because that's pretty much
right. Not
no surprise there, is there?
Nope.
All right. Well, it is break time. We're going to have to take a 3-minute commercial break. Brent, this is normally where I say goodbye to you, but since your friend's here, you want to stick around? Or
I'll stick around until the first commercial break in the next half hour. Then I'm on grandpa duty.
All right. So we'll be back in 3 minutes, my friends.
It's the least we can do for the red, white, and blue. We must take America back.
You're clear here. Clear. Thank you. I'm downloading the trailer of 1,000 Days of Terror right now so that we can play.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's
5
really
minutes
well done.
and 23 seconds long. All right, so there it is down. Wait a minute. Did I just extract the audio instead of? I may have just done something stupid. I gotta check. No. I did it right. There's a surprise.
So this is fun, Tamara.
I know. When David texted me this morning and said, "Can you jump in?" and he goes, "Oh, by the way, you follow Brent."
The coolest thing. So
yeah,
Tamara and I have been together a long time. So lots of shared life together. So this is fun. I don't know if we've ever done this before.
No, I don't.
Have we?
We have. No.
I don't think so. I don't remember ever doing it.
What's that? Simultaneous guests?
Yeah. I don't think we've ever done this.
I've been on guests and on programs, and Brent has been, but never together. So pretty fun. You're the first.
Yay! So I downloaded that video and now I can't find it. I don't know where
Oh no.
By the way, that book I mentioned from the 1950s, it's not just still available. It's available in all formats. I mean, there's even the Kindle or the Audible version. I was surprised when I read about it. I thought, I want to grab that. I wonder if it's still in print. It's in print in every format. So
wow. What's the title of it again?
When Prophecy Fails.
I work with a guy from Netherlands, and he was all excited that he just recently found some of his favorite children's books translated from Dutch to English. So he had been telling them to his kids in English, translating him himself. He just found them already translated, and he's all excited about it. He was telling me about it just today. He goes, I was ordering your book, and then I found this.
And do they say the same thing when they're translated, or?
I don't know. I think he just ordered them. I don't think he's actually got them yet.
Maybe in the English version, the witch actually eats the children.
Right.
So, oops.
That's a rabbit hole we don't want to go down to.
Yeah, right.
Well, it's something, most fairy tales aren't the Disney-fied cutesy things. They all started as terrible, horrible warnings where the witch does eat the kid, and the people in the women in Cinderella like mutilating their feet to try to fit into the slipper, and like all kinds of really bizarre things that aren't in the Disney versions that we all know.
Thank you. We're coming back. Here we go.
The American dream has become a nightmare. Signs of the time are on cardboard on corners in town. Like a cancer that's silently spreading, there's an unspoken fear. We're on our way down. We must take America back.
Welcome back to the top of the second hour of National Intel Report, live on Republic Broadcasting Network, Liberty Lighthouse on Mojo 50 Radio and Patriot Nation Radio Network. I am your host, Peter Seraphine. With me tonight, we got Brenthamachek with so many websites, I'm not going to list them, and Tamara Lee, who is a longtime friend of Brenthamachek, filling in for Dave Sumrall.
Yeah, and Tamara and I have our own show together called Trend on Politics that can be found on Your News. I think we post a new one every Wednesday. We're on a couple of weeks break while Tamara's on vacation, and while I'm in mourning that Tamara's on vacation.
Wait, Tamara's on vacation and she still chose to fill in for Dave here on my show?
Yeah.
Well, it's such a privilege to be on your show. It's all I talk about when I talk to her. So I'm sure that was an easy decision for her to make.
It was, yeah.
I'm not wearing my boots, and it's getting mighty deep in here.
If David asks, I usually answer with a yes. And then our own show, I just had my daughter got married, so I had some family. And now I'm with my grandkids. So little family hiatus there. But usually a new episode posted on yournews.com and on Rumble. So,
well, I will be taking some vacation of my own here next month. Oh, hey, Mike, producer. I'm not going to be around the second week in November. I'm flying to Minnesota.
Little housekeeping business.
Yeah, little housekeeping on air. That's always good, right?
Yeah.
I'm flying to Minnesota to watch my eldest son get married.
Congratulations.
Yeah. I can't believe I'm not a grandfather yet. And in the chat, yeah. Thanks, Mike. Okay, so you mentioned the trailer for 1,000 Days of Terror. I went and downloaded it. I have it ready to go. It's about 5 minutes long.
It goes fast. It really does. It's very compelling.
All right. 5 minutes of video. Here we go.
I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard.
January 6, 2021. The media propaganda machine fed us a story that shapes the narrative of insurrection. They intentionally left out some key details. There's an entire timeline that you haven't seen, and it tells a different story.
They're going into the Capitol, I think.
Look, there's cops up there. It looks like they got sniper rifles.
Everybody stop here!
Where did Trump say to meet him? Down front? Who were the agitators? What was the timing? How did the chaos begin?
Unit 6, I need less people teams. They can come up from the upper west terrace and take an elevated position. Right now we have group stopped at the Lower West Terrace. They're not compliant, climbing scaffolding. Let me know when the less than legal teams are in place.
We want to petition our government for redress of grievances.
Did the officers not hear this? You were told there was fighting, but where?
Shoot me! Fuck you! Fuck you! Traitor! Put that gun down!
As a dream through the fence.
Unit 6, I got a crowd fighting with officers pushing, throwing projectiles. I have given warnings about chemical munitions. I need the less than lethal team positioned above me to identify the agitators and start deploying. Launch!
Were there any warnings to evacuate, much less safe exit routes? Dig deeper.
Let's have the seat for us.
Do you see it? Let's slow down a little. Notice the smoke from the sniper's barrel? What do you think that means? This is where Joshua Black is shot in the face. He never saw it coming. First blood, but wouldn't be the last. Is this where the agitation began? The police line is now reinforced. Chris Quaglin approaches the police line screaming about the shooting of an innocent protester in the face when an agitator tactically pushes him from behind into the already anxious police. The agitator, Landon Copeland, admitted to being a member of Antifa just after being sentenced for his involvement. The police reacted with violence, further infuriating what was a peaceful crowd.
They've been throwing flashbangs, shooting. Look at that shit. Stay on
The anger spreads among the crowd from the unprovoked attack by federal agents. None of this had to happen. As aggressive police forces continued to provoke the crowd, peaceful became chaos. This attack by police ignited the past 1,000 days of terror, which ends now.
These guys get it. They're trying to save this guy's life right now.
What happened? What happened? The cop shot her. The cop shot that? Shot her in the front. What the fuck? Shot her.
All right, so that's a trailer for a.
Yeah, I should have given the warning that Ava told me to before you watch the film, the 1,000 Days of Terror trailer. Big warning label on the film that there's violence, brutality, death, and reality. So.
Yeah. And sorry, Mike, I didn't watch it. I didn't watch it beforehand to bleep out the F-bombs.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty raw.
Kicked off the network.
And it just breaks. So for your audience who may not know, like the one scene with the baton, you could see it in the corner. Gary McBride was the first to, and I interviewed him right after he broke that story. The first to identify Lila Morris That's the officer who was beating Roseanne Boylan over her body with that stick that either caused or contributed to her death. And Roseanne was the one, she was on the floor. They were trying to resuscitate her. And going back to our lies that were told is they came out and said, Roseanne Boylan, they looked into her history and saw she was, and they said she died of a drug overdose, which is so disgusting, gross, that they would take someone who worked really hard.
Absolutely right. I mean, they came out right away and said Roseanne Boylan died of a drug overdose. And anybody who's seen the video, she's clearly beaten either to death or nearly to death, and then allowed to die.
It just,
It
I
doesn't
know
look
these
like
people,
any drug overdose I've ever seen.
It's hard not to get emotional. I know I've interviewed Mickey Wilf. She's a friend. For her to lose Ashley the way she did, and yet these deaths have gone unanswered and unaccountable for, and the general public really has no idea. There were J6ers where the SWAT team showed up and said, "You killed one of ours," referencing Brian Sicknick, because the lie they told initially was that he was hit over the head by a MAGA person with a fire extinguisher. Completely
They
a
told
false,
many
flat out
lies.
lie. So we're
They told-
countering these lies that have stuck in the public's mind, just like Brent said, and it's very difficult. So a film like this that is shocking is the only way we're going to kind of get people to see this is really what happened. And yes, our government has been lying to us, and yes, this is what we thought happened in other countries, but it's here. So we're trying to get to the because shortly after J6 at the Super Bowl that year, 2021, Lila Morris was one of the Capitol or DC police officers honored at the Super Bowl, made a hero. And we're trying to find out how that happened, who set that up, who arranged that, who happened to know that Lila Morris was the one who was beating Roseanne Boylan over and decided the way to do damage control was to get her propped up as a hero. We don't have that information yet, but we're trying to get to it.
There's many lies that they told us, and then they keep telling them. The people in the Capitol Hill still call it an insurrection. They still say that, or at least imply that the rioters at the insurrection are the ones who caused death, when everybody who died that day died at the hands of police.
Yeah.
And look, you watch that video and you can see the flashbang grenades being shot into the middle of a crowd, which is completely against how a flashbang is supposed to work. A flashbang is designed to disperse the crowd. You use them to move people in a particular direction. So in this instance, you would want to disperse them between you and the crowd to get the crowd to move back. Instead, they're shooting them into the crowd, which is going to make the crowd expand.
Well, and there was nowhere for the crowd to go. If you're, it comes in the middle of that, there's no path out. You're caught in the middle of it. So, those things are really important for the public to understand. And we're trying to get to that tipping point of where those of us who have been working the beginning and trying to get the truth out there, where we find that tipping point, where the general public should be enraged, because we would agree that if it was someone who we disagreed with, but they had every right to redress our government peacefully and patriotically, protest and come and state their First Amendment right, we would support that. We don't support the violence, but we support your right to the First Amendment. And so we've got to get where we are no longer divided on this issue, but where other people will see, well, gosh, if I speak out at my school board, now I'm on the FBI target list. That's not just conspiracy theory. That is in fact happening in America today.
Right. Well, we got three comments over in the YouTube chat room worth mentioning. We got, wow, I've never seen that. What a POS our government and aggressive law enforcement is. Disgusting. Definitely watching this film, I got goosebumps seeing that. And I will definitely promote this video. Every American should see this. I agree. I hope this video does kind of like, what was Sound of Freedom. I hope it does kind of like Sound of Freedom, where they want to squash it, but they just can't because it takes off and people demand to see it.
Well, if
This
your
is a
audience
live
wants
call-in
to go
show.
over to stophate.com, we have not just our Stop Hate videos up there, documentaries, but Bloody Hill, Writing History, The 1,000 Days of Terror, the J6 timeline that'll be coming out in November, but also other people's work. I know Laura Logan just released her J6 expose, very powerful interviews with Matthew Perna's aunt. Matthew Perna was the J6 victim who hung himself because the DOJ was doubling down on his sentencing and adding enhancement of terrorist charge, and he just couldn't take it. He was a really decent, good guy. It's heartbreaking that he felt there was no way out other than to hang himself, because the stress that this puts these J6 family members, the whole family, is people look at you like you're a horrible person, so you're alienated in your community. You're most of these were just law-abiding people, good, decent human folk, and went there because they believed the election had questionable results. The government, Congress, to say, okay, let's investigate these discrepancies. Let's make sure we're really where we are. But the whole thing, if you look deeper, like David said in the movie, dig deeper, you find out why all these things were set up to play out the way that they did, is all because of the election fraud that occurred prior to it. So they had it's like the lie that snowballs. If you start with one lie, then you have to keep adding lies to it, because otherwise you're back in that original lie. So there's a lot of really great content out there that exposes much of the truth. So please do go look those things up. Condemned USA is another good source for information. So.
All right. Well, this is a live call-in show, and we haven't taken any calls tonight, which is odd. 512-248-8252 is the call-in line. If you prefer to text because you don't want to be on air, that's 646-974-4487 or 64 my rights. We're going to take this as the last chance to enter to win a book. We're going to draw for the last collection of books here in just a couple of minutes. So go to liberty-lighthouse.com, click the blue win a book link right at the top of the page, and we'll have Tamara pick a number here in just a minute. And there's our first call, Sarah in Oregon on line 1. Welcome to the show, Sarah.
Hi, everybody. This is me, Sarah. But I've been questioning everything. It's been like voting doesn't work, but the only thing that can happen is violence. But we don't want to end up like Joe Biggs or Enrique Tarrio. And here's the one more thing. Please share out any show you like and help us out. Be kind. Share it out. Bye.
Thanks, Sarah. You know, you hear that a lot. Voting doesn't work. I kind of think that over the last couple of years, we've had examples that it does. We've had, like, let's see here, the speaker race last time around, where 5 people in the House held up the election of the Speaker of the House. And now, this time, a handful of people, you know, one person stood up and was it 8 voted to remove him.
Right. Well, of course, voting matters. And the people that make the argument of why bother to vote because the elections are rigged. I mean, I want to be kind, but it's difficult. So let me just, at best, say, well, then give up, stop paying attention, don't worry about it, because if you're going to suggest that that's the case, then we're done, right? Because there is no recourse from that. That's surrender. So I suppose we could just switch and have a monarchy, and then we wouldn't have to worry about this whole voting thing. So the trick is to try to fix it, not to abandon it. Of course, the great fear is that after what's happened in 2020, and I'm totally unpopular with this everywhere I go, because do I believe there was election interference? Absolutely. Do I believe that the election outcome was likely, possibly changed? I actually do. But my point is, you can't prove it. You literally can't prove it. We have tons of data points that suggest it's the case. The best we can do is create a hypothesis it was stolen, but we can't test it. So the only thing we can do is try to make sure that the things that happened in 2020 that led to the creation of the hypothesis that the election was stolen don't happen again. So there's a ton of reform work that needs to be done. People need to forget about the 2020 election. They need to quit complaining about it, whining about it, thinking we need to reverse it. It's not happening. It's over. But everything that happened that led us to the point that we're at now, that can be fixed. And that's where all of the effort, the greatest word in the English language, is next. So let's focus on next. Let's realize that if we walk away from elections, we walk away from any chance to have a free country. And let's realize that 2020 is in our rear view mirror, and we want to drive responsibly. So let's look forward.
No, I think one of the biggest things we could do to reform our elections is to get government out of primaries. Primary elections are how two private organizations choose who they're going to put on the on the ballot in November for us to vote for. Why is government involved in primary elections at all? If the Democrats want to let everybody and their brother vote in the Democrat primary, it's their problem. It's a private organization. If they want to let illegal immigrants vote in their primary, it's their organization. And if the Republicans want to say only registered Republicans with photo ID can vote in our primary, okay, it's a private organization. Primary elections are not real elections.
As I get ready to have to sign off here to go be a responsible grandparent, I apologize. I'll just leave a quick thought, and then I'll leave you in Tamara's very capable hands. Of course, the issue with that is that those primaries that happen, that are, as you say, between political parties selecting nominees, of course, they funnel into then state and national elections and so on. Mm-hmm. None of these things are hard to fix. The folks down in Texas at Authentics have a near counterfeit proof ballot that, if used across the country, would wipe out about 80% of all voter fraud. Put that together with cleaning up voter rolls, and the problem is solved. So it's easy to solve. And what people have to realize is that there is not yet a collective will to solve it. And that means the listeners to your show, not the politicians in office. There's more of us than them. And if we could stop just going about our daily business and watching Netflix and doing whatever other silly things we do, and get more actively engaged in this thing, we could change this. But if we don't, we won't. And then we'll lose, not elections, but everything. And on that cheerful note, I thank you for having me back again. And Tamara's much more pleasant. Tamara's much more pleasant and cheerful than I am. So thank you so much, and hope to see you next month if I'm still around and you'll still have me.
All right. Thank you very much for your time, Brent.
Bye.
Bye,
See you later.
Good night.
We're the half glass full and the half glass empty, and together we make a whole half glass.
He is a lot more optimistic than I am at times. But we
yeah,
are
but
coming
don't
up.
say that word to him. That's like a swear word in his lexicon.
We
He's
are
a
coming up to
realist.
the commercial break where I normally say goodbye to Dave as well. So I will leave it up to you if you want to stick around for the rest of the show, which would be another half hour, or you could say goodbye too.
Well, I will depart only because I also have grand waiting for me. We could call ours the geriatric show. Politics for old people or something like that. But thank you for having me in David's stead. It's an honor to be here. I always joke when he and Brent are back to back because it's like my two go-to guys, right, in all of this. And so it's nice to have officially joined the party. You can find, as Brent mentioned, our Trend on Politics show on yournews.com and on Rumble. Typically Wednesdays we drop a new show. And I have to, on David's behalf, tell your audience again, go to stophate.com/support. Anything you can do to help. I can personally testify that David, Sumrall, and the Stop Hate team have put in countless hours since January 6th at their own expense and just have been relentless. And we would not know the truth we know today if not for David's work and his being the driving force. So I think, okay. So anyway, you can follow me on Twitter, now X, at Tamerley, LLC. That's TAMARALEIGHLLC. I'm back on there once we got all our accounts back, and then on Getter, Gab, and Truth Social at Tamara Lee. So thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us tonight, Tamara. We are long into the break. Have a good night, and I'm sure we'll talk again.
All right. Bye-bye.
With that, break time, everybody.
Tom Bolton for Ease Off. I know so many of you are finding our Easy 4 carcass drop and lift an essential tool for your meat processing operation. But today I want to spotlight
You're off air.
our new process.
I couldn't hear the music. I was looking at the clock going 7:25. We should be in commercial. Why haven't I heard music?
Yeah, I was trying to jam it in there, but I don't think Restream was able to. I think we were having bandwidth issues across the board there because I wasn't able to see Tamara's camera very.
Yeah, her camera was really choppy, and her network connection was pretty rough according to the little graphs I can see.
Anyway, I just try to keep it on time for your Mojo show.
I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, I mean,
it makes my editing a lot easier. But I didn't hear the music coming.
Yeah, I don't think it was getting through. I was trying to crank it up without losing Tamara completely.
Yeah,
her audio was still coming through, but yeah, I was like,
it looked like I could be wrong, but it looked like she was in a hotel room, so she may have been on hotel Wi-Fi, which
I'm not sure. Definitely see. We were getting some echo feedback from Brent, I guess.
I don't know. I was attributing that to her crappy connection as well.
I don't think. I mean, once Brent was gone, I didn't hear it anymore, and I wasn't hearing it when Brent talked. It was just when y'all talked or the music was playing. I think Brent had his just high enough on his output that he was getting
he was picking up the feed.
Yeah, picking up in the mic or just overloading the software. It can really go either way, honestly. Anyway, we'll be back in about 10 seconds. Here we go.
All right.
Pride and victory. Come unite with us today at tlbtalk.com and join the social media revolution.
You're tuned in to the National Intel Report, the real talk radio show, only on the Republic Broadcasting Network.
That's right. This is the National Intel Report on the Republic Broadcasting Network. I'm Peter Serafine, your Thursday host, and I got some text messages that came through here. We got, could the J6 arrest be considered discrimination against Christians? Probably most of the participants were Christians, except for the FBI agents. That's a good question. I don't know that would hold up in court because they're going to say, well, it had nothing to do with religion. It had to do with the insurrection. But yeah, the other side claims that everything is racist. So we could do that, I suppose. Better question. Doesn't the video show footage / proof that the doors were open from the inside? That's the funny thing about this. If you look at one point in that video, there's an overhead shot of the Capitol building. All of the violence occurred on one side of the building. On the other side of the building is where they're opening the doors and they're waving people in. So yeah. Dave Sumrall and those people at StopHate.com, they've got some great video footage. I don't know how they got the permission to go out there and do it, but they went and saw like all of the security footage. And they've got a lot of good stuff, but nobody sees it. Like none of the mainstream media is going to show it. They really, McCarthy sent it out to Tucker, and Tucker picked and showed, what he could, but it's thousands of hours worth of footage. Editing it down to something to fit on the news show is hard to do, and when you do, then they claim, "Well, you edited it out." Well, that's what you did. You edited out all the peaceful stuff and only showed the violence. So now let's show some of the peaceful stuff. And then another text message, each of the two main political parties are corporations, and that is true. They are. They are non-profit corporations, which that is funny to say. Political parties as non-profits. I think most of them are. If you look at the smaller ones, the Constitution Party, the Libertarian Party, the Green Party, they probably all operate as non-profit organizations. But the D's and the R's, the elephants and the donkeys, they certainly do not operate as non-profit organizations. All right. Live call-in show. Last segment, 512-248-8252 is the phone number. If you want to join the text line, it's 646-974-4487, 64 my rights. So there was a lot of stuff there. I had not watched that trailer before putting it on air. Dave sent it to me, and I have to say I didn't watch it, and then I downloaded it to put it on the show. Sorry about the cursing there, RBN network and Mojo networks. And, it is what it is. I don't know where to go from here other than I forgot to put in my sponsor ad in the last segment. So go to Romika Designs for me. Romika, ROMIKA designs.com, and use code Lighthouse while you're there. Get yourself some cool laser cut, laser etched products. Awesome custom made laser stuff from the laser guy. Romika designs.com. Use code Lighthouse. I'd appreciate that. I don't know. I still have books to give away. I forgot to have Tamara. We ran long in the last segment, so I forgot to have Tamara pick a number. But so I need somebody to call in, at least to pick a number. Pick a number as to who's going to win the books tonight. Let me look and see where we are on that list. How many do we have now? Technology. Oh, getting up there. I've got a couple of more. So I think going back to the Representative Bowman pulling the fire alarm thing, I honestly think that if we lived in a fair world, that Representative Bowman would be charged with interfering with an official procedure, government procedure, just like those January 6 prisoners were. You're talking about the looking from above the building where all the violence was on one side and not on the other. People that came in on that other side have been arrested and charged too. Thousands of people were arrested, or over 1,000 people at least. Interestingly enough, I tried to find that number of how many people have been arrested about January 6th, and that number is not readily available. So that's bad. You can look up, how many people are arrested regarding the George Floyd riots, and you'll find the number pretty quick. It's like 14,000, 17,000, I forget. But you can find it pretty quick. You pull up for January 6th, then you're only going to find one source, and it's going to be a number that you know isn't right. It's like 1,400 or something like that. I know it was more than that. Maybe it's 1,400 that are still in jail. Right. Mr. Chris over in the YouTube chat room just picked a number. He said number 33. So let's see here. Number 33, Kinsey Richards. Congratulations, Kinsey Richards. Let me write that down before I forget. It's funny. I was just on a show with Kinsey. I was on Off Track Syndicate on Sunday, and Kinsey was one of the hosts there. And somebody picked Kinsey's number, and we were like, no, we can't give it to one of the hosts. And then Kinsey took a dice, rolled the dice, and it came up his number again. So Kinsey missed out twice. And then Chris here just picked Kinsey's number for the third time. Kinsey wins the books. Finally, Kinsey, you better be buying a Powerball ticket, my friend. Give up that trucking world. So going back, Representative Bowman pulls the fire alarm. He was a middle school principal before joining Congress. He knows what a fire alarm looks like. He knows what a fire alarm does. Any BS about, oh, I thought it might open the door is just that. It's BS. He knew it was a fire alarm. No question about it. The idiots over on the View tried to make it look like he pushed a button. No, it's a fire alarm. There is a lever that must be pulled. It is not just a push of a button. It's not how fire alarms work. So, middle school principal, who probably pulled several to do drills in school, pulls the fire alarm. Knows it's a fire alarm when he pulls it. So the only question is motive. Why would he do it? And the only thing that makes any sense is to delay the vote, because he and his entire party was trying to delay the vote. So, what is that? Actively trying to delay a vote is interfering with a government proceeding. The exact charge that many of the people from January 6th were charged with and getting years in prison. Now, going further into this, maybe he's just stupid. Maybe I don't know. He's new, whatever. No. He was rushing to get to the roll call vote number 531. 531. Which means he had been there for roll call votes 530 other times and didn't accidentally pull a fire alarm. Oh, wait. That's 530 times this session of Congress. He's on his second term. So how many times did he rush to get to a roll call vote the first time he was in Congress and did not accidentally pull a fire alarm? So clearly, this idiot pulled that fire alarm intentionally in the most surveilled building on the planet. Maybe he thought it wouldn't get caught on camera, but it was. The double standard here is glaring and obvious. Grandmothers have been charged with trying to halt in a government proceeding, but he's going to get off probably with nothing. The double standard. But when you have double standards, that means you have no standards. It's kind of like injustice. A two-tier justice system. That's not justice. That's injustice. That's the way the world works. And that's what we're living in right now. I don't know how to fix it other than doing like I said and trying to get literally hundreds of people that remember what our Constitution is supposed to be in Congress all at the same time. Hundreds of them. Anybody who's hanging their hat on President Trump or hanging their hat on any other one person is doing it wrong. That's not how life should work. You can't rely on one person for the safety and security and prosperity of your entire country. When you put everything into one person, well, that's when you elect a Hitler or a Mussolini. That's when you prop up Stalin and Lenin. That's how you get these fascists and dictators and everything else. You can't put your faith in one person. That's why I try to put my faith in the Constitution. I honestly believe that if followed, it's the ideal government. The problem is that politicians don't follow it and haven't for a long time. Like I said a little earlier, like I was just writing an opinion article where the Alien and Sedition Acts were 7 years after the First Amendment was ratified. So let's think about that. 7 years. We've got the 56 guys that come together to make the Constitution. 39 of them sign it. Some of them, like Mason, won't sign it. So you've got Patrick Henry and George Mason who demand a Bill of Rights. Even though Madison says we don't need one. The Constitution itself, it says what the government can do. They can do nothing else. Guys like Patrick Henry and George Mason, they don't trust government. We want a Bill of Rights. So Madison promises a Bill of Rights. Madison produces the Bill of Rights. Just like he said he would. Start right there. Start right there. This is a politician who made a promise for something that he didn't really support, didn't really believe in, not something he was doing for himself. Made a promise and then actually did it. He did exactly what he said he was going to do. That's odd to begin with in today's world. So Madison takes the amendments proposed through the ratification committees across the country, and he boils them down to 15 amendments. And then he presents those 15 amendments to Congress, and Congress boils it down to 12. Those 12 get sent out to the states, and 10 of those 12 get ratified. The first one ratified, Congress shall make no law abridging the freeness of speech or of the press or of the establishment of a religion. And 7 years later, the Alien and Seditions Act passed, punishing going after your government, punishing petitioning your government for a redress of grievances, punishing free speech, punishing a free press. 3 of the 5 freedoms guaranteed by the very First Amendment to our Constitution violated only 7 years after that amendment was ratified. And likely, I mean, you think about it, 7 years They all knew. They all remembered. The people in Congress in 1798 knew the struggle that they had to get the Constitution. They knew what they meant by the Constitution. They knew how hard Patrick Henry and Mason and patriots like that fought to have a Bill of Rights. And they passed these laws anyway. And Adams signed it. Adams, the second president of the United States, signed it, allowed it to become law. Fortunately, Jefferson comes along and pulled him back out immediately. But that was 7 years later. And Congress did that. Now, here we are 240 plus years later, and Congress does whatever they want. We don't have people that were there when these things were drafted and ratified. We don't have people today that can remember that. We don't have people in Congress today who heard the debates, who actually read the Federalist Papers when they were printed in newspapers. We don't have people in Congress today like that. But what would happen? I really want to know. I want to know somebody else's thoughts and opinions on this. What would happen if we were able to get enough constitutional originalists in our federal government to have complete control? Let's say we've got a veto-proof majority of constitutional originalists in both the House and the Senate, and a constitutionalist president. We've got all the levers of government under our control. All people who truly want to limit government back to the enumerated powers of the Constitution. What would that do to the United States? Short term and long term. I suspect that's going to be two different answers. I suspect that short term it's going to be something very, very bad. But long term, it would be very good if we manage to be able to keep it. But that's my guess. What's yours? Andy in Texas, line 1. Welcome to the show, Andy.
Hey, well, thanks for taking my call. No, I mean, I give life a lot of thought. And so, I didn't ask to be on this planet. And I certainly didn't ask to be in this mess that we're in right now. And I didn't ask to have any of this happen to me. But I'm here, and I'm trying to navigate through all of this, let's call it BS, that's going on right now. Does it have to be like this? Do we have to? I mean, because we have a group of people who call themselves the authorities, and they're authorities to what? They're the authorities to rules and regulations that these people, put together for us. But what is my role? My role. I mean, why do I have to fight my government for my freedom?
That's a good point. Like, we shouldn't have to. We should be able to just pay attention and tell them no every now and then, and that be sufficient. But it doesn't work like that.
Well, I know, but the thing is that's how far society has gone down. I mean, think of all the stuff that we learned growing up, because there was a society here when we first grew up. There was schools, there was this, there was truancy. If you didn't go to school, you got in trouble. If basically they said you're going to be indoctrinated or we're going to bust you.
Right.
Nobody's able to free think anymore. And anybody who does free think now, we're freaks. We need to be terminated. We need to be incarcerated. They got to get rid of us. and herein lies my big concept with life is that why can't I just, here's my theory. Here's your freedom. Harm nobody or their property, and you can do whatever the hell you want.
That's a very libertarian
Don't
mindset.
harm any. Just don't harm anybody. Don't hurt their property. Don't hurt them, and then do what you want. And then they've got all these different laws that are up, a DUI. You know what? It used to be back in the day where the cop would follow you home just to make sure they knew you were drunk, but they would make sure you made it home just to follow you. Now in today's world, boom. Hey, if we even suspect you're drunk, they're going to give you a sobriety test, and perhaps you have a balance problem. It doesn't matter. I smell alcohol.
Let's talk about that.
Stuff like that.
I got pulled over once for a sobriety test. And I refused to field the sobriety test. And the officer's like, "Why are you refusing the sobriety test?" I said, "Because I've had 5 knee surgeries. I have no balance anymore. Anything you give me having to do with balance, I'm going to fail. Why should I give you that as ammunition that you use in court later? You give me a sobriety test that is about cognitive ability or hand-eye coordination, and I'll consider it. But you add balance to that mix, and no."
Well, the obedience of people, because we recognize what we call authority. And authority comes from all these different bureaucrats who are making these new laws and this and that and the other, and we see that as authority. But I see my life as my life. And why are you so much involved in my life? Why can you come to me and tell me I got a problem when it's not a problem for anybody else?
Right.
Hey, I got a problem, but it's not your problem. It's my problem.
That's funny.
And they want to arrest you for it.
What you've just described is the Trump lawsuit going on right now in New York City.
Exactly.
The city of New York, or the state of New York, I forget which, it doesn't really matter, has him in civil court right now saying that he broke all of these rules in civil court, not a criminal court, in a civil court. But there's no complainant. There's no injured party. The bank, the banks that he dealt with all got paid.
And made a profit.
Right. Everybody involved was happy with the deal.
There's no victim to any of his crimes that they're bringing up, which leads me to believe, and take this however you want, leads me to believe that this is all kind of fodder. They're just giving us something to watch why they do this. I don't think he's going to get in trouble whatsoever at all about this stuff. But the point is that they're giving us some sort of TV here because, maybe our courts are that screwed up. Maybe they are going to try to throw him in prison. Maybe they are. I don't know for that fact. But
you want my theory?
The fact of the matter is it's so silly. It's so silly what they're doing to this guy right now. It almost makes you feel like you're watching a comedy show.
My theory is they're throwing the book at him, charges and made up charges, some of which are crimes, some of which are not, civil court, criminal court, everything they can, just because they know he would win the next election. So they're trying. They don't expect him to actually go to jail. They expect to tie up as much of his time as possible so he can't campaign. They expect to lose these cases. I'm sorry. They expect to win a case or two, but they do expect to lose them on appeal later. They want something. They want to give him a black eye before the big election. They want to keep him busy so he can't campaign and give him a black eye before the election just because he's the front runner on the other side and polls are coming out saying that he would win.
So I dabble in a little bit of Alex Jones, and I think it was Monday or Tuesday that Alex Jones came out and said, based on his and he's supposedly got some really high up people and stuff. They said that nor Biden or Donald Trump will be our candidates in 2024. In fact, they might even just cancel the election at this point, because we're in the process of signing our entire world pretty much into the World Health Organization and the WEF and stuff. So we're giving it up to NGOs. We're giving it up to non-government organizations to run our world and stuff, because they're going for this new world order and stuff. So we may or may not have an election in November, or we may have an election, but it'll be two different candidates besides Biden and Donald Trump, which is just off the hook, kind of crazy to us. You know, everything we're listening to on the news and stuff right now, it seems surreal. It's like, what? This is not the way our country was. This is not the way it used to be. It's not the way it is, but it is, and they're changing everything on us.
I would be perfectly okay if it is neither Biden nor Trump next time.
I would too.
I mean, they're both too old for one. You know, I would love to see Vivek Ramaswamy versus RFK Jr. Because at that point, I'd be like,
wouldn't that be fun?
That'd be great. Like, one way I get my constitutionalist kind of guy, and the other way, well, I get an old school Democrat who still believes in law and the Constitution.
And sovereignty, yeah.
And sovereignty and freedom. All right, Andy.
Yeah, but I thank you for your time, sir. Appreciate you.
Thank you, sir. It's almost time. It's almost, blah, 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 blah. You know, you'd think that after 4 years in the radio, I speak a little better than this from time to time. We're coming up to the last commercial. It's almost the end of the show. And, well, I don't know. I think I'm done giving away books for a little while. So thank you very much to everybody who entered. You can keep entering. Maybe I'll do it every now and then. But I don't have plans to do it every week like I said. If you are listening live on Republic Broadcasting Network, please stay tuned for Edge of Darkness with Jeffrey Bennett. I want to thank Brent and Tamara, my guests this evening. Thank you, Mike, my producer. Couldn't do the show without you. Thank you, listeners and callers. You're why we do this show. Until next week, protect your liberties. Once they're gone, there's no getting them back. God bless America.
It's the least we can do for the red, white, and blue. We must take America back. We must take America back.